Imagine hitting the brake pedal at like 180 miles per hour and feeling absolutely nothing. I mean, no hydraulic bite, no electronic resistance at all.
Just that dead hollow travel of a carbon fiber pedal just hitting the floorboard.
Exactly. And, on a wide open track with massive runoff areas, that is a terrifying mechanical failure. But on the claustrophobic, barrier-lined streets of Monaco, that is, well, it's a death sentence.
Oh, absolutely.
Welcome to our deep dive. Today, we are tearing apart the internal telemetry and the massive psychological fallout of the 2026 Monaco Grand Prix. Our mission today is to decode a weekend of just violent contrasts.
Yeah, violent is definitely the word for it.
Right. We are going to examine how catastrophic systems failures basically neutralized two of the grid's biggest titans, while a 41-year-old veteran driver manipulated all that chaos to achieve this massive redemptive milestone.
The telemetry we pulled from this weekend is, frankly, it's genuinely staggering. I mean, we are looking at a race that completely stripped away the illusion of modern F1's aerospace-level reliability.
Yeah, that illusion is totally gone.
It really is. You have Max Verstappen's power unit practically cannibalizing itself right there on the starting grid. Then you have Charles Leclerc surviving a total brake-by-wire collapse under a safety car.
Unbelievable.
And, we have the subsequent highly explosive corporate fallout with a legacy parts supplier. And then, running completely counter to all that mechanical carnage, you have Lewis Hamilton basically engineering a career renaissance at Ferrari.
And whether you follow the telemetry frame by frame or you are simply fascinated by the extreme psychology required to pilot these machines, this deep dive reveals a fundamental truth about the sport. Because no matter how many millions you pour into hybrid architecture, these cars are terrifyingly fragile.
Right. They are always on the absolute edge of destruction.
So let's jump straight into the starting grid. Max Verstappen qualifies second. He has the pace to challenge for the win, but before the lights even go out, his race is just over. The power unit simply refuses to reach the necessary pre-start RPMs.
Well, and the pre-start sequence on these 2026 hybrid engines is, it's not just a matter of revving the throttle.
Right.
It is this immensely complex synchronization process. You are trying to align the internal combustion engine with these massive electrical deployment systems.
Right, the phase mapping.
Exactly. And if the phase mapping is even fractionally misaligned, the torque delivery will violently twist the internal components. I mean, Verstappen reported on the radio that the engine, quote, sounded pretty bad.
Which is such an understatement.
Yeah, it really is. In the paddock, an engine sounding bad isn't a minor misfire. It means the pneumatic valve timing has likely fallen entirely out of sync with the pistons.
It's an acoustic nightmare. When a driver of Verstappen's caliber says he cannot press the throttle, he isn't just being cautious.
No, not at all.
He knows that applying full load to an unsynchronized 2026 power unit will literally shatter the block. I mean, he's feeling the harmonic imbalance right through the chassis.
And the telemetry confirms his instincts were spot on. Pressing the throttle fully would have resulted in catastrophic internal detonation. Wow. Red Bull's engineering pit wall had to immediately order him to nurse the car back to the garage at crawling speed. I mean, this is a driver who put together a phenomenal qualifying lap, who felt completely dialed into the setup, and he's walking away with 0 points before the formation lap is even a memory.
Just brutal. But Verstappen's failure, as brutal as it was a static event. What happened to Charles Leclerc on the other side of the grid was a dynamic, utterly terrifying loss of control.
Yeah, that was hard to watch.
Let's look at the exact sequence. Lance Stroll puts his car into the barrier, right? So that deploys the safety car. Leclerc is running virtually in second place. The pack is backing up. And then, completely unprovoked, Leclerc puts the Ferrari straight into the wall at turn 19.
Right. And anyone watching the initial feed might have assumed, oh, it's a cold tire lockup or maybe a momentary lapse in concentration. But the telemetry tells a completely different, horrifying story.
Oh, totally.
A modern Formula One car utilizes a highly complex split braking system. The front operates on traditional hydraulics, but the rear relies heavily on the MGUK harvesting energy to slow the axle.
The brake-by-wire system.
Exactly, the brake-by-wire system. And looking at Leclerc's post-race data dump, out of the 4 corners of the car, only the front left brake was functioning normally.
Wait, I want to isolate that for a second because it's insane. You are in a multi-million-dollar missile, navigating the tightest street circuit in the world, and 3 of your 4 brakes just vanished from the network.
Yes. The front right was registering bare minimum pressure, effectively glazed or mechanically dead. And both rear brake-by-wire inputs were at absolute zero.
Absolute zero.
Zero. There was zero deceleration registering when he engaged the pedal. And the thing is, when you lose the rear brakes entirely, the car's brake bias shifts 100% to the front.
Which means
If he tries to aggressively steer or, pump the pedal, the car will violently snap spin.
it's the equivalent of a fighter jet losing its tail rotor mid-maneuver. You are no longer flying the aircraft at that point. You are just managing the crash trajectory.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Leclerc realizes he has no stopping power for the upcoming sequence. If he tries to cleanly navigate turn 19 and then accelerate toward the high-speed turn 1 on the restart, he is looking at a massive head-on impact at terminal velocity.
And that split-second calculation is the pure survival instinct of an elite driver. He used the barrier at turn 19 to intentionally scrub off his kinetic energy.
Wow.
He essentially sacrificed the suspension and obviously his race to ensure he didn't end up in a medical helicopter at turn 1.
Which brings us to the immediate explosive aftermath of this whole thing, because a driver doesn't just walk away from a mechanical betrayal like that and, shake hands with his engineer.
No, definitely not.
The adrenaline turns into demands. Leclerc stated definitively that Ferrari knows exactly what caused the failure, and he issued this massive public ultimatum. Starting at the next race in Barcelona, he is completely abandoning his current brake setup.
Yeah, that was a huge moment.
He is switching to the exact configuration his teammate Lewis Hamilton uses.
And the implications of that demand are massive, both technically and politically. Hamilton runs a brake configuration supplied by Carbon Industries.
Right.
Leclerc has been running Brembo.
Right.
So when Leclerc made that announcement to the press, he ignited an absolute corporate firestorm. Brembo's not just any supplier. They are an Italian institution.
Oh, they are royalty in motorsport.
Exactly. And they responded almost immediately with a highly defensive public statement expressing, quote, great astonishment at Leclerc's comments.
Okay, but I have to play devil's advocate here for a second. Leclerc just survived a near-fatal systems collapse. He was a passenger in his own car heading towards a wall. Doesn't he have every right to publicly demand a change, regardless of whose feelings get hurt in the press?
From the cockpit's perspective, absolutely. When you hit the pedal and nothing happens, your loyalty to a supplier evaporates in a millisecond.
Right. You just want it to survive.
Exactly. You want the hardware that is keeping the guy in the other garage alive, and Hamilton's brakes are obviously working. But from an engineering and corporate standpoint, Brembo's pushback is entirely justified too.
How so?
Well, they have a 50-year legacy with Ferrari. To have this star driver essentially blame their product on global television before the engineers have even taken the chassis apart, that is a PR catastrophe.
Because it might not actually be the brake material itself.
Definitely.
It could be the Ferrari-designed hydraulics, or maybe a severed sensor wire, or a glitch in the brake-by-wire software that Maranello coded themselves.
Exactly. Brembo called his conclusions premature because until you do a microscopic teardown of the master cylinder and the electronic control unit, pointing the finger at the carbon discs is reckless.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But the mechanical truth almost doesn't matter at this point because the psychological damage is permanent. Leclerc no longer trusts his side of the garage's engineering path.
And that leads to, honestly, the most fascinating dynamic of this entire deep dive. Leclerc is so desperate for stability that he is subjugating his own setup preferences to copy Lewis Hamilton's.
Yeah, it's a huge shift in the power dynamic.
He is conforming to the veteran's engineering choices. And you really have to look at the broader 2026 World Championship landscape to understand the gravity of what Hamilton is doing at Ferrari right now.
The championship standings are just wild right now. Mercedes' young prodigy, Kimi Antonelli, is operating on another plane.
Wow, he's unbelievable.
He is leading the championship with 156 points. Just to contextualize his pace at Monaco alone, Antonelli pulled a 7-second gap on the field in just 8 laps, and he did it on older tires.
That is absurd. Gaining nearly a second a lap around Monaco, where you can barely squeeze 2 cars side by side. That means his traction out of the slow corners is just alien. He's driving a spaceship.
Right. Antonelli's dominance is absolute right now.
Yeah.
But sitting directly behind him, incredibly in second place in the World Championship, is 41-year-old Lewis Hamilton with 90 points.
Wow.
He is beating his former Mercedes teammate George Russell, who sits at 88 points, and he is comfortably ahead of his own Ferrari teammate Leclerc, who is currently at 75 points.
We really have to unpack this turnaround because Hamilton's debut year with Ferrari in 2025 was widely categorized as a total disaster.
Oh, it was brutal.
That the media was writing the obituaries on his career. Critics said the reflexes were gone, that the new generation had just aged him out. But here we are in 2026, and he has already secured 3 podiums in China, Canada, and now Monaco. I mean, the internal telemetry and the paddock chatter literally refer to it as the Renascido, the reborn.
And reversing a career trajectory like that at 41 years old, in a sport that measures reaction times in milliseconds, that doesn't happen by accident.
No, definitely not.
The internal analysis points to 2 critical pillars supporting this resurgence. Off the track, the psychological baseline is incredibly strong. His relationship with Kim Kardashian, who, by the way, was highly visible in the Monaco paddock wearing Ferrari headphones.
Right, she was everywhere on the broadcast.
Yeah, that relationship has provided a level of personal stability that Hamilton explicitly called, quote, incredible.
And, people love to dismiss the off-track lifestyle of F1 drivers. But at the absolute elite limit of human performance, your mental bandwidth dictates your simulator sessions, your debriefs, and your qualifying laps.
Absolutely.
If the personal life is chaotic, the lap times suffer. If the personal life is grounded, the driver operates with a clear head.
The cognitive load of piloting a 2026 F1 car requires absolute mental clarity. You just can't be distracted. But the second, and arguably more structural, pillar of this renaissance is his working relationship with Ferrari team principal Fred Vasseur.
Yes, this is huge.
Hamilton has been very vocal about crediting Vasseur for intervening where previous management failed. During the struggles of 2025, Hamilton was practically begging for specific changes to the chassis geometry and the overall setup philosophy.
Because historically, Ferrari is a team that dictates engineering to the driver. The culture is very much, we build the ultimate machine. It is your job to adapt your driving style to it.
Exactly.
Mercedes fell into that exact same trap with Hamilton in 2023 and 2024 when they refused to adjust his seating position. But Vasseur actually listened.
Vasseur totally dismantled that legacy stubbornness. He empowered Hamilton to guide the development direction. And when a team principal validates a driver's feedback and actively alters the car's DNA to match the driver's mechanical requests, the trust just skyrockets.
Yeah, you can see it on the track.
We are seeing the physical manifestation of that trust right now. Hamilton isn't fighting the car anymore. He is attacking the circuits.
Which brings us to the emotional and historical weight of this Monaco result. Because securing 3rd place in this specific race wasn't just about bagging points for the Constructors' Championship. Hamilton secured his 8th podium in the Principality.
Yeah. He officially equals the legendary Ayrton Senna's record for podium finishes at Monaco.
That's just chills.
It really is. This is Senna's ultimate playground. It's the track that exposes a driver's raw talent more than any other circuit in the world.
Equaling Senna at Monaco is sacred ground. And what makes this milestone so aggressive is the context of the era. Hamilton didn't inherit this podium because 3 cars in front of him retired or crashed out.
No, not at all.
He achieved this on pure race pace, fighting through the field in cars that are heavier, wider, and vastly more complicated than anything Senna ever drove.
It's the ultimate validation of his enduring relevance. Hamilton had a quote over the weekend that perfectly encapsulates his current mindset. He said, "I feel like I'm at a point where I have to remind people who I am."
Oh, that is such a powerful
Bro.
quote.
He also noted a very distinct philosophical shift, stating that it is easier to chase than to defend.
Let's dissect that psychology for a second. The concept that it's easier to chase. Does that make a 41-year-old veteran, a driver with 7 world titles, who holds almost every record in the book, who literally has nothing left to prove, the most dangerous competitor on the grid right now?
Absolutely it does. The pressure dynamic completely flips. When you are defending a title, or when you are the young prodigy like Antonelli expected to win every single weekend, you are driving with everything to lose.
You're driving tight.
Exactly. Every millimeter you push past the limit risks destroying the status quo. But when you are chasing, when the entire paddock has already written you off as a fading legend, you are operating with house money.
He's totally unshackled from expectation. He's not driving to prove he belongs in Formula One. He's driving to remind the grid that he owns it.
You combine that psychological freedom with a car that finally responds to his inputs, and you get a driver who takes calculated risks that younger drivers simply won't take. Achieving that level of aggressive commitment on the streets of Monaco is a brutal statement of intent to the rest of the field.
So, synthesizing all of this telemetry, all the quotes, and the crazy corporate drama, we are left with a massive dichotomy from the 2026 Monaco Grand Prix. On one hand, you have the absolute fragility of the machine.
Yeah, the mechanical nightmare.
Verstappen's weekend destroyed by an engine that couldn't sync its own ignition cycle. Leclerc turned into a helpless passenger by a brake-by-wire failure that could have ended his season or worse. The absolute peak of automotive engineering exposed as terrifyingly vulnerable.
And then, amidst all that mechanical carnage, you have the human element just transcending the chaos. Hamilton proving that veteran racecraft and psychological resilience can still extract historic results from an unpredictable weekend.
Which leaves you with a final thought to mull over. We see Hamilton locking in his setup, demanding and receiving developmental control from Fred Vasseur, and really reestablishing himself as the lead driver in the standings.
Right.
Meanwhile, Charles Leclerc, the homegrown Ferrari prince, is publicly abandoning his own engineering path and adopting Hamilton's brake supplier just to survive the race. How is that going to fracture the internal power dynamics at Maranello?
That's the million-dollar question.
If Leclerc is basically copying Hamilton's homework, you have to wonder if the ultimate battle this season isn't actually Ferrari trying to catch Mercedes. The real war is the psychological battle for supremacy happening right now behind the closed doors of the Ferrari garage.